Okay. Hi guys, thank you all for coming. This is our second MOA meeting, and we're gonna just start off with a few club updates.
So here are a few guidelines that we ask all members to follow during our meetings. Please respect officers and guest speakers by muting yourselves while the hosts are speaking and by being respectful to those in the call and chat. And if there are any disruptions, then you will be kicked out of the meeting. So since this meeting is being recorded and posted to our YouTube channel, if you are not comfortable with us posting this, with you being recorded, then please save questions to the end of the meeting when Julianne stops talking.
So this is new to this year. We're actually starting an attendance point system. If you were here for our last meeting, you might already be familiar with this. The whole point of the system is to just motivate members to come back and like win prizes, because we want you guys to have fun. And so how this works is, in order to get points, you have to attend the meetings where we're gonna have a sign in and sign out sheet. And so by signing in, you get 1 point, and by signing out, you get another point, but you also get another point if you get the word of the day. So that each meeting has a total of 3 points. And we also have extra events and like opportunities, volunteer opportunities, where you can get bonus points. For example, we haven't completely set this up yet, but we're gonna have like donating your blood, you can get extra points for that as well. So if you guys want to scan here right now as an opportunity to sign in, I'll leave this up for a few seconds. You can just pull up the camera on your phone, at least for iPhone, and then it'll take you to the link. And then just make sure you press the sign in check-in box, and then at the end, I'll have the QR code up again, and then you can sign out as well with the word of the day once Julianne finishes her presentation. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead, but if anybody still needs it, just let me know right now. I don't have that chat open. Is anyone saying anything?
No one's saying.
No, there's nothing.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so we have a couple upcoming events in the month of November. So on November 6th, this one's pretty big. We got a couple like allied health instructors and professionals from both Foothill and De Anza, and we put them into one panelist event. So for example, one of them is going to be an EMT instructor, and then the other is from the head of the dental hygienist program from Foothill, and we're collaborating with another De Anza club called HAMS. So it's going to be a big event, and there's extra credit if you guys attend this event. So please do come. And then on November 20th, we have a UCSF medical admissions workshop. So please do come to that. We'll update you guys in the emails too. So should be.
Yeah, I just want to add the extra credit opportunities of what I was mentioning before, so you can get extra points for coming to that. And the UCSF medical admissions, it's not just specifically for UCSF as well. They also talk about the general medical school application process.
Thank you, Isabel. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so we just updated our website as we stated in the previous meeting. If you guys go to active opportunities, so if you go on the website and you click through opportunities, under that tab, there would be a tab called active opportunities, and there are such things as COVID-19 volunteering, virtual shadowing, and soup kitchens that you can volunteer as of right now. We also have like a set of categories where you can look through it. We have like annual programs, conferences, internships. So there's like a whole bunch. And if you want an entire overview, we even have a spreadsheet available to show what is currently active and what is not. So just check those out if you're interested in volunteering now or plan to volunteer maybe later this year. I think Isabel's screen is slightly frozen. Okay, awesome.
Okay, and other exciting news, we are also might be coming out with merch also. So if you could scan the square on the left, it'll take you to the merchandise interest form, and we would like greatly appreciate it if you guys could fill it out. It will take less than a minute. And it's just asking if you do want merch, what kind do you want, like a quarter zip, a hoodie or a crew neck, and other options. And this will also be a great way for us to fundraise. So not only make money for the club, which will also help to make more events in the future for you guys, but you can also get like a cool piece of merchandise clothing to represent our club.
So here's all our social media. We post updates and general information about our club on Gmail or on our Instagram and our Gmail most often. And you can also find that information on our Facebook. And then we also have a YouTube channel where we post our Zoom meetings. So if you're ever unable to attend a meeting, you can also watch our videos there. We also have 2 QR codes, one to join our mailing list. So if you want to do that right now, you can do that. And then we also have another QR code to visit our link tree with all the links to our social media and also a link to the merchandise form. You can find that there as well.
Okay, so now we would like to introduce our awesome guest speaker of the day, Julianne Nguyen. Julianne was a former MOA officer and UC Berkeley alumna, and she's going to share her insight and advice through her pre-med journey alongside gap year or gap years. Julianne, welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. You know, that MOA, once you're in MOA, you never leave. So I'm very excited to be here. Thanks to Amy for extending the invitation for me to come and speak to y'all. Community college is honestly so like near and dear to my heart. I love community college and community college students. So I am very stoked to be speaking to you all. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And I will do my best to not be like a really old person and just mess up these like logistics, but let's see. All right. So how does that look? Can everyone see that? Wonderful. Okay. Okay, awesome. So, hello everyone. My name is Julianne. My pronouns are she, her. I will go into kind of like my background and like tell you a little bit more information about myself. But just before we begin, I just want to say that I'm really here to kind of like be beneficial to you. And so if you have any kind of like feedback, comments, questions as we kind of go along, I can try to kind of like focus on things that you're more interested in. And this is kind of like a safe space for us. I recognize that this is being recorded, so we will have a portion of this that's not recorded. So if you'd like to kind of like share some of your thoughts and things like that, like and more comfortable to do so without being recorded, there will be an opportunity for that as well. But truly, this is like a judgment-free zone. There's no such thing as a stupid question. So if you want to ask, just go ahead and do so. And yeah. So really quickly before I kind of like dive in, can I get just like a overview? Who is interested in what? Like, are most people here interested in like medicine? Do we have people interested in like nursing or dentistry or like any other variety of things?
I'll just voice them out. We got nursing in the chat, physician,
Okay.
dentistry, physician assistant.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, awesome.
Nursing
So
again, they all love nursing.
because I'm on the pre-med route. So my pathway might not be kind of like exactly the same as yours, although I'm sure there are many similarities as we go through, and hopefully I'll try to keep it general so we can kind of just extrapolate all that information and find it useful. So thank you for participating in that quick little survey. So let's dive in. So introduction about myself. So I am, once again, I'm Julianne. My pronouns are she, her. I am a Vietnamese American. I will start at the beginning. So I grew up in a very, a nice place to grow up, but it was very kind of like predominantly white and affluent. And that was very interesting for me growing up, just like trying to discover like my racial identity and just how I fit in, just coming into my own, I guess. So that was just sort of like personally challenging in and of itself. I'd always kind of like planned to attend a four-year university out of high school. I am the youngest of three siblings, and both my older siblings are very, very smart and very motivated individuals. And so I'd always sort of anticipated I would follow in their footsteps, attending some kind of college right out of high school. So going through that experience of applying to many colleges when I was in high school, I applied to many and got into one. So I lived my own personal perceived nightmare of like, oh my God, like, what do I do? Like, I don't have as many options as I suppose, like I hoped that I would. And after a lot of reflecting, I was like, is this one school like really where I want to be? And after a lot of like thinking, I'd applied to that school as a psych major and was really unsure that that was what I wanted to do. And so I decided that wasn't where I wanted to be and decided to attend community college instead. I had always kind of like thought that I wanted to go into medicine from a young age, but the experience of not having a ton of success, like getting into colleges, kind of gave me a lot of doubts about whether or not I could do it. I was like, well, if I can't even, you know, like in my mind, I was like, well, if I can't even get into college, like, how could I, you know, think that I am so good to like become a doctor? Like, I knew even like during high school days, like, it's very competitive and all these things, like there's no way that like I could be good enough, right? And I think that there was a lot of things that sort of like made me reconsider like my own abilities. I think that like being pushed into STEM, I don't know about y'all, but like my Vietnamese Asian parents very much pushed me to be in STEM. And I think that sort of like being forced into it was something that like made me really consider whether it was for me. I was like wondering if it was like a path that I wanted to pursue or if that was something that I had just sort of like been pursuing out of like a projection that like my parents were putting on me or my family's like expectations were putting on me. And so I spent a lot of time actually just like considering what I wanted to do and whether or not that like whether or not it was coming from me or from someone else, because that was important to me too. So eventually I went to De Anza and I think my plans sort of changed. So I started out as a psych major thinking that I couldn't really do STEM. I was like, well, I'm gonna like try my hand at psychology because I'd taken AP Psych and really enjoyed it. So I went to De Anza, started off as a psych major, and I took like a psychobiology class and then realized that I liked the biology way more than I liked the psych. Not to say that you can't go into medicine like being a psych major, but I think that I just kind of like had a moment where I was like, honestly, I think that the medicine is what really is like drawing me to STEM in general anyways. So I switched my major to biology and kind of like went from there. So I was a bio major, I joined MOA, snap. And I think that that was actually very pivotal for me and it gave me a lot of support. And like, honestly, just like gave me an opportunity to just kind of like thrive and just come into my own as like potentially like a pre-med student, a transfer student, like all of the above. but of course, like all of that being said, like it seems all like rosy and stuff on paper, but honestly, my first year of community college was like the worst year of my life. Like it was really awful. I survived Newton's physics class, barely, just barely. Literally the passing grade, I will just give you this anecdote right now. The passing grade was like 60%, and I think I got like a 60.1%. And I cried that day of relief because everyone had told me to drop the class, but you know, that is a story for another day. But I survived Newton physics, and like going through college apps again, it was just like, oh, you know, it can be very exhausting. And I just had a really hard time. Like I was going through stuff in my personal life, like my aunt had passed away, just like a lot of things kind of all at once, and like adjusting to a new school and a new environment, just a lot. So, you know, if anyone ever tries to tell you that community college is easy, just tell them like, what do you know? But I am very grateful that I eventually was able to have a lot of options. So I had applied as a transfer this time I had a lot more success. So I was deciding between a few UCs, and that was like really exciting for me because this was like the first time I'd had the chance to do that. And I'd always kind of seen myself going as far away from home as I possibly could, and ended up being the closest because I went to Cal and was literally just like 30-40 minutes from home. But that being said, I think like I transferred to Cal as an integrative biology major. And honestly, I had a great time. I think that De Anza really prepares you very well for, you know, your wherever you transfer to. I think that the academic rigor at De Anza is like actually quite high. And so I felt like really good. Like as a student, I felt pretty confident in like my own abilities by that time that I was like transferring. And I don't know, maybe this is perceived, but I definitely felt like I like maybe had my shit together a little bit more. So like once I was transferring, I was like, yeah, like I know what I'm doing, and like felt a little bit more confident in like in my own abilities. And so I felt like, I don't know, I feel like I had really mentally prepared myself to like expect the worst, if I'll be honest. So once I got there and it wasn't the worst, I was pleasantly surprised. But it was definitely an adjustment period, like getting used to a new environment and a new place, like just moving out, like living on my own for the first time. You know, it was a lot of things at once as well. But I don't know, being a transfer was pretty dope and I really liked it. So anyways, I'll just continue to move on because I feel like I'm taking too much time. But essentially, I graduated as an integrative biology major. I was pretty involved in like in this like pre-med club at Berkeley. It was called the American Medical Student Association. And I also got very involved in the Southeast Asian student organizations on campus. So got much more involved in like student organizing, and just generally like civic engagement, like advocacy sort of stuff, which is like kind of my jam. I just love that stuff. So I definitely enjoyed it a lot, but I think like as a transfer student, I definitely pushed myself a lot, like academically and just like almost like professionally. And so I didn't have a lot of time during undergrad to pursue those things. So I decided to take a gap year. We are now approaching my second year. So I guess now we're in gap years, plural. But I definitely wanted to take the time during my gap years to kind of like beef up my resume and also just pursue things that I just didn't have time for in undergrad, if I'll be honest. And so now I am working at the Stanford Clinical Anatomy Lab, which has been really awesome. I have kind of a spooky job because I work with cadavers, but I have been like very involved in like teaching anatomy, which has been really, really awesome. I really love anatomy, love like the content matter and the application, the potential and actual applications to like medicine and research. And so I feel like I'm definitely in a really awesome place and I'm really glad to be here. But yeah, so I guess here I'll just show you these like really funny pictures of me. So this one's like, I just thought that was cute. I was like, oh my God, MOA, the inception days. So here I am. This was like a club day or something. I don't know, in like what, 2017 or something. That feels so long ago now. I feel old, but like here I am, baby Julianne. And then here's me taking this very stereotypical grad photo in front of this library that literally everyone takes their grad photo in front of. We love it. And then here's me at my job now being weird because, oh, you know, fun stuff. But they painted an anatomically correct, like knee drawing. So there's like my patella and like some of these ligaments and tendons and like ACL, PCL, that kind of thing. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I swear my job is not all just like drawing on me. It's like some actual teaching. But I do have fun. So that is kind of like my background. So now you have a little bit more context. But let's kind of like dive into our activity. So I've been talking a lot about myself. I'll give y'all some opportunities to chat with me. Also, I'm sorry, I have not been like looking at the chat. I have like many screens and things like in front of me. So it's kind of hard for me to like keep tabs on everything.
No, it's okay. We'll just have the questions asked at the bottom, and we're saving the questions. So we'll make sure to get everyone's question about your presentation so far.
Perfect. Okay, so oops. So I'm going to let y'all, oh my God. Technologically challenged. Okay, but here's the question. What do you think that schools are looking for? So regardless of what you are interested in, like nursing, dentistry, whatever I'd seen in the chat there, like medicine, what do you think that those schools are looking for from you? Like on an application? And you can unmute yourself, and if you would like, because I am not looking at the chat, there's like too many things going on. Anybody?
I will just throw something out there and say leadership experience.
Leadership experience, sure, yeah. So like she like mad struggling right now, so I'm gonna stop sharing really quick. But yeah, leadership experience is definitely one.
Someone in the chat said GPA. Another person said community service involvement.
Okay.
I would say extracurriculars in general. So, and grades are definitely important.
Okay, so I got GPA, leadership. What else?
Oh, it's kind of cheesy, but like dedication to a certain thing, or like persistence as well. I feel like those are very important.
Okay.
I think another thing is like being able to work past problems, because I know there's always so many kind of questions like what were the obstacles that you overcame?
Yeah. So let's like call it resiliency. How about that? Ooh, a word, a spicy word. We like it. I'm sorry. I was like multitasking a lot there. I think I missed something that someone said. You were saying it was
Community service.
Community service.
Personal growth, maybe.
I like that. Was there one that I missed? I think I missed one. I'm trying to think of what it was, but I forget now. I'm sorry. What else?
Someone in the chat said background.
Background? Can you give me a little? Can you give me a little more about that? Do you mean like maybe like your? I don't know. Like, what about your background are they looking for? Can you elaborate?
Just like a little more specific than, yeah.
Well, I'll just put that. How about? I'm not picky here. What else?
Like overcoming challenges.
Overcoming challenges. Oops. Okay, I think this is interesting, but at this point, also only one person has mentioned like a metric, which is kind of awesome because I love that. I love that we're talking about like personal growth before we're talking about like the MCAT, but let's put that because I think that's a big one too, you know? But yeah, okay, y'all are laughing, but sometimes
Interview?
interview is a big one. Sometimes when I do this talk, people, that is like the first two things that people say, GPA and MCAT, or like, you know, whatever test to do. I don't know, I'm gonna say like entrance exam or something.
What about like hobbies or your passion? That be one?
I'm gonna put that in quotes. This elusive passion. All right, so we've filled our list, and honestly, the list could go on and on and on, right? But I'll just kind of like hop back into it. Okay, so here's the question. What are schools looking for? And we have come up with this like quite comprehensive list, if you ask me. But here is my question to you now. So suppose we have a student who has all these things, okay? Like we've got essentially like we've made a checklist, okay? We want a student who has a good GPA, a student who demonstrates leadership, and a student who has resiliency, community service. They have grown personally, maybe. They have like a great background. They've shown a lot of these qualities that we're theoretically looking for. So they have all these great things and they still don't get in. So what do we think that we're missing? Like I've ticked all the boxes of like things that I think that schools are looking for, but there's still something left. And don't worry, this question could still be rhetorical, so just mull that one over. So what I'm trying to get at is that what is the thing that connects all of the things that we've put on this supposed checklist? So what's the thing that unites all of these? Like, what is your purpose? What is your drive? So I would argue that that's what they're missing. So a lot of times I don't know, like us pursuing like health, I think a lot of us are sort of like these like type A characters. We like to get things done, you know, we like to see like a very clear path. We want to plot, you know, like if I do X, Y, and Z, I will expect ABC outcome. We like to be very like regimented and know exactly what to expect and when to expect it, right? And so a lot of times we kind of like end up falling into this concept of a checklist. And you see this a lot. If you attend like pre-med clubs, informational sessions, they will give you essentially a checklist like this. They'll be like, here's what schools are looking for and here's what they expect from you. And if you don't have these things, you just won't get in. And this is a very common idea, regardless of whether or not like you think it's true. Like this idea comes up often. It's the concept of the checklist. And I think that that's so sad because I'm like, how do you like manufacture overcoming a challenge? I just don't know. So I think that a lot of times like we get kind of like caught up with like, oh my gosh, like how do I, you know, demonstrate my resiliency, or like how do I, you know, like manufacture like my most perfect, you know, essay response or something. But some of these things are things that we can like work on very purposefully, like through like academics and, you know, like working on like your professional life and things like that. And some of them are not things that you can sort of force, right? But I think that the thing that I would hope is that there is some kind of underlying drive and underlying purpose that sort of ties all of these things together and like helps tell a story about yourself that will help demonstrate these things just in a more personal to you way. And so I think that it's kind of problematic to view that this list as like the way of getting into a school because, you know, like I think that we give you this essentially like this checklist because these are experiences that previous students have done and found success with, or like found that they enjoy. Like so many students end up doing these things, but I would like to make the argument, or like I would like to think that it's because they actually enjoy doing those things and it's not because they are just doing it like just for shits or something. I don't know, or like to like make themselves look good, which I mean, you will encounter many of people who do that and maybe you do that too, and that's fine too, but I would hope that you at least like it, at least a little bit. But I think that it's problematic to think that like you could have the exact same CV, the exact same like resume as someone else and expect the same outcome. Because the truth of the matter is if you were to copy someone else's exact like, you know, well, they volunteered here, so I'm going to do that. And like they did research there and I'm going to do that. You won't have necessarily the same outcome because your experience of those opportunities will be different and like you'll take away different lessons from it, right? So you could have the exact same experience as someone else on paper, but you'll have very different lessons derived from them. So like I am confident that as long as you do something that you kind of like and that you enjoy, you can kind of find that like underlying purpose of like why you're doing it. But obviously that's much easier said than done. And a lot of times it's hard to realize like while you're doing it that you either don't enjoy it or like that it's like the one thing for you, or like, I don't know. It is hard, I'll admit. So back to this elusive idea of like passion. We'll touch on that in a minute. But I do want to just kind of demonstrate to you where we get this concept of like the checklist. I've also heard it described to me as buckets. I don't know why, but I've heard it as described as buckets, like buckets that you need to fill. And this is sort of why. So right now I'm like shopping around for med schools that I'd like to apply to. And this is pulled off of the website. It's called like the medical school admissions something rather. I'm blanking on it right now, but it's a website essentially that has all like these medical schools in the US, and they have information on the students who attend these medical schools, and they kind of give you you know, a regurgitated little bar chart of what the students do. So this is a pre-medical experience chart for students who now attend Stanford. Okay. And I just chose that because I work there, not because I'm like, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But as you can see, like these experiences are quite common, right? So we've got community service, volunteer, which I'd heard on our previous slide, someone had mentioned that. Physician shadowing, clinical observation is another one that like many students have done. The medical clinical community service, like volunteering, that sort of thing. Paid employment, so like being an EMT or like a nursing assistant, that sort of thing. Not as many people, but research and lab, a lot of people have done that. And like, obviously it varies from school to school what they prioritize in their incoming students. But as you can see, like they don't make this list up from nowhere. I mean, it is true that like many students who apply to like medical school, for example, do these sort of activities. But also you can also see that it's not 100%. There are many students who don't have any like remotely related experience in like medicine or that sort of thing, and they still get in. I know in Italian, like there was somebody who was like an Italian literature major and went to Stanford, and like someone who was like a high school Spanish teacher for a few years and went to Stanford. So definitely there's like a wide array of like interests and like passions that you can pursue and still get into medical school. We're just giving you what, or people are just giving you what they perceive to be the way, whatever that might mean. But also in these buckets, I've also heard, of course, we've got the MCAT and the GPA, but also like the something extra bucket, which I think is sort of what people are talking about when they're like, what are you passionate about? So on the topic of passion, I will invite you all to do this little activity with me. This might be new to you. Please indulge me. I'm going to walk you through an activity. So if
Julian, would you like us to stop recording on this part?
I'll let you record me walking you through it, and then once we finish the activity, like I'll tell you when.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, cool. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay. Okay, so if everyone can kind of get comfy where you're sitting, like put both your feet on the ground and like fix your posture a little, relax your shoulders. Okay, so I will give you like a trigger or a content warning of potential suicide ideation. But hopefully you feel comfortable and you're in a quiet spot. And if you can go ahead and like close your eyes. All right, and take some deep breaths. Fill your belly with air. Take a deep breath in and out. Ground yourself where you sit. Take a breath in and out. With every breath, release any tension that you might have. You're in a room with white walls. You're in bed and it's warm. Sunlight trickles in through the window. Outside, you can hear a breeze going through the trees. You can hear birds chirping peacefully. You're content and at peace. You're 105 years old, and you know in a few minutes that you will die. Reflect on your life. What have you achieved to make you feel at peace in this moment? when you feel ready to come back, you can open your eyes. All right, so those who I can see have their eyes open now, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started again. If we could stop recording now, I think. So I think with that activity, now kind of like my next like follow-up question is like, let's consider what we think to be like, what is the classic definition of success? So a lot of times we equate kind of like being successful with our job, it's basically our job. It's how we are faring in our professional lives a lot of times. And so I think that this activity for me highlights like, I think that the things that you brought up are actually the beginnings of you discovering what your purpose is. So I just think that it's interesting that although we were having some like considerations like about like patient interaction, like what kind of like outcome would I like to have with my career, you know, like what would I like my impact to be? No one strictly said that they saw themselves like, you know, like in that moment that like being a doctor was the thing that gave them peace, you know, like being a dentist, being a nurse. And so I think that when we differentiate our kind of like academic and professional career from your sense of kind of like purpose and self-worth, you can be more resilient when the shit gets hard. So I think that like my argument with this activity is like, instead of seeing your professional career and your professional life as being essentially like the climax of like almost all you have to live for, like what you were put on this earth to do, instead maybe consider some of the things that ran through your mind during that activity as like your kind of like deeper purpose. So instead of considering your career as like the thing that you were like put on this earth to achieve, maybe instead you can reframe it and think of it instead as a way of fulfilling your purpose. So instead of your career being that one apex, that one thing, you're using your career as a tool to kind of fulfill your purpose. And I think that it helps a lot when you start reframing the way you think about like your academic life, your professional life in this way, just because if you think about someone who's very goal oriented, right? So like, for example, someone who is like, I'm just gonna hunker down and I'm gonna get through my transfer applications, and then I'll be able to like feel a lot better about myself. I'll be able to like enjoy life again. So you like do your transfer applications, you finish them, you send them off, you feel great. And then there's another thing. Then now you have another thing like, oh, now I have to like worry about my class. Now I have to like think about my final, my tests, my midterms. So like the issue with like being goal oriented and goal oriented alone is that you will pretty much constantly be in the state of like hunkering down and like not enjoying your process, right? So I think that when you can kind of like tie what you're doing, like each step of the process, to some kind of like deeper purpose, I think it can help you remember why you're doing it and then appreciate it a little bit more. And then like, instead of having these like moments where you're like, oh, like I'm experiencing like the highest of highs, like I got an A on that test that I had been like striving so hard for, working so hard for so long. And then like you strive so high, you get what you want, and then like you immediately go back to hunkering down, because there's always going to be something more, there's always going to be a next step. And especially with a pathway that is as long as like medicine is, I know not all of you are considering medicine, but like considering like how long some of these pathways are, you need to be resilient. And I think that it's really hard to equate like your personal sense of self-worth with sort of like the outcomes of your professional life, because honestly, it's hard. It's so hard. And like things just, like despite how much you plan and prepare, like things just don't always go according to plan. And so like, how do you view yourself in those moments when things are hard? Like, do you beat yourself up and like say that it's your fault? Or do you just kind of like, think like, you know what, like I am worth more than this. Like, I know that I can do better, and like, I'll do better next time. So I think that it's really important to kind of like have that differentiation between like our goals, our professional goals, and like seeing them as a tool to help us fulfill some kind of like other purpose. And so you can kind of see the things that you hope to achieve in your life as essentially like side effects of your purpose. That's kind of like how you can like wake up every morning and like feel confident with where you are.